Greg Locke. The man is burning books and hunting witches. He's literally taking us back to the 1600s. Join Mark and I for a conversation. This is Church is Lame. Let's get into it. So, in the world of things in the church that are broken, there are few things that are as broken as Pastor Greg Locke, to be quite frank. He is a pastor that has cracked the code. He has figured out, he and his team have figured out social media. They have figured out that the internet loves controversy. The internet craves the spicy and the perverse and the over the top and the hyperbolic. And
Oh yeah.
so, in faithfully keeping with all those things, Greg Locke recently hosted a book burning. You know, those things that we thought were gone with desegregated the schools and we let the kids on the buses together and we let the black people sit on seats other than the seats that were at the back of the bus. But no, apparently alive and well with Greg Locke. And it's fair to say that the video on this has gone viral. Apparently, Harry Potter and the movies and the book series, Twilight,
Twilight.
right? And and as well as things that are genuinely occult, tarot cards, Ouija boards, things of that nature. Apparently, we're just burning anything now. And this is the same guy who just today and yesterday made headlines because he literally got up at the pulpit of his church saying a demon has communicated with him and has identified that 6 women in his congregation are legitimate witches.
Yes, because Greg Locke communes with demons.
Oh my gosh. Good Lord.
I mean, red flag, huge red flag. I mean, I don't know how. Okay, I do know how. All right. I mean,
Yeah.
there's various reprogramming techniques that people use. There's community. There's a lot of information on why people belong to crazy fringe groups. And there's there
Sure.
might be an atheist listening to this podcast saying, "You two idiots are a crazy fringe group because you're Christians. You believe in
Right.
that Jesus, this dude was God." It's like I get it. But I'm also not throwing copies of Harry Potter on a fire and claiming that it teaches actual freaking witchcraft.
There are certain things that are just easily testable. Don't stick a screwdriver in the electrical socket, right? This is something easy to test. How do you test it? You stick a screwdriver in the electrical socket and bad things happen, right? The same thing is true here. Like if Harry Potter is really teaching witchcraft, I should be able to walk up to my wife and kids and say oculo reparo and all of the eyeglasses that they've scratched up and marred that I've wasted money on in the last few years should all get repaired. But these are things that we can easily test and say, yeah, no, when I say these words and when I do these incantations, you know what happens? Absolutely nothing.
And what does that say about you when you're calling J.K. Rowling, who's a Christian, whether or not you agree with her on any particular point, that's your business. But
Right.
she is still a Christian. She is a devout believer.
Yeah.
She wrote these books in order to, communicate Christian themes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if Greg Locke and his people are burning copies of Chronicles of Narnia. I mean,
Right.
C.S. Lewis is a beloved Christian author. I know there are people that forget that J.R.R. Tolkien was a Christian and, will burn Lord of the Rings. But just because something mentions, magic doesn't mean that it's evil. It's one thing to go and see a, quote unquote, witch doctor,
Yeah.
to get healing. It's different thing to read a story.
I didn't realize just how much I was going to have to say about this. And so I'm not going to say it all. One of the things that infuriates me about Christian leadership in general, and Greg Locke in specifically, is the penchant to pursue fake problems with nonsense solutions. So, fake problem, Harry Potter and books and movies, that things that are clearly meant to spark a child's imagination and fantasy is actually true evil. That is a fake problem. But the solution is every bit as fake. Like, if you truly believe that there is an occult power and witchcraft, and it is contained in books, do you really think like just getting your little church together and setting them on fire is anything more than what it is, which is a publicity stunt, right? Like he knew he was going to do this thing and he knew it was going to go viral on the internet. It was never anything more than that because burning things doesn't do anything except warm your hands when it's cold outside.
The other thing I have to ask, where did these books come from? Because if these people are that far down the line, they're not the kind of people that are going to go out and consume Harry Potter books. Heaven forbid, one of them should watch Hellraiser, because I'm sure then they'd be on the lookout for puzzle boxes, just to destroy them. Like,
Right.
I'm sure people are actually going to stores and buying these books, or maybe even stealing them from, relatives just to destroy them. I mean, I've seen some oddball YouTube videos of people going into Walmart and picking up some book saying, this book is sinful, and then ripping it up on camera. And of course, what are you actually proving with this? That you just don't like a thing? Because drawing this much attention to it, I mean, I don't even know what that accomplishes ultimately, other than making, people like you and me just look on these people with some degree of contempt.
Well, sadly, we live in a world where clicks equal money. Somebody is pocketing money, and that somebody in this case is Greg Locke, right? There's a lot of money to be made, and it's the oldest story in the book that people will use religion as a way of making unfathomable amounts of money. Words is hard.
Yes.
I hate being that guy. If you can burn fantasy books about witchcraft, what's next? What stops you from burning books on Martin Luther King Jr.? What stops you from burning books on Barack Obama? What stops you from burning books on the Holocaust or the relocation of Native Americans or the quote unquote interning of Asians in America? I have the slippery slope argument about a lot of things, but I feel like there is no example where the slippery slope is as obvious as it is in the dumbing down of America.
Like, whenever I hear like that slippery slope argument, like I always just kind of stop it
Exactly. Yeah.
mentally, right? Because it's like
Yep.
it is considered a reasoning fallacy.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
but the problem is, we have, things like Fahrenheit 451, which talk about a society which destroyed its books. We have 1984, talks about a society which destroyed books. When you start destroying thought, setting these enforced limits on what is acceptable thought, things get weird.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say for tonight on this, I could go on forever about this because I'm really
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the graphic for this like steam coming out of my ears. Is this really how God envisioned us to use the power of the pulpit? Like when I look at the example of Jesus, and generally he had some pretty fire things to say to religious leaders, but on the whole, it seemed like he was trying to bring a kingdom kind of perspective to all people, and with the hopes of the effect that it had on those people is to lift them up to the kingdom, and so that the kingdom and humanity would meet. And I don't see that happening in the ministry of Greg Locke. Instead, I see a ministry tries to maximize outrage, that tries to maximize
Mm-hmm.
hate, that tries to maximize the division between us and them. And I see it acting in a way very contrary to the example of Jesus. If your
Yeah.
life doesn't mirror the life of Jesus, then you're probably something's wrong.
The job of a pastor in the pulpit is to rigorously, my gosh, still can't say it, teach orthodoxy.
Why don't you go on to define orthodoxy for us?
So orthodoxy, I mean, literally it means right thinking,
That's a
which is,
really useful
you know,
definition.
and orthopraxy is, right acting.
Right.
What part of burning books to begin with, much less burning fiction books, much less burning fiction books written by Christians, what orthodoxy or orthopraxy are we teaching here? Nothing. The role of pastors is to keep people rooted in reality, seeing things through a spiritual lens.
Yeah, that's good.
teaching that fiction books teach actual witchcraft, and to believe that somebody could actually somehow acquire a Nimbus 2000 and go flying around on it, it's absurd beyond what I can really deal with.
Or like if you're going to go after books, go after some like really good ones. Like there's no doubt in my mind that 100 years from now, there will still be the Harry Potter ride at Disney, not because the books were so good, but because of the phenomenon that was Harry Potter, right? These
Mhm.
books that sold really well, that went on to become movies that sold so well, that went on to become theme park attractions that sold so well, that went off to spin off other shows and other characters and other properties.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's big about Harry Potter. Not the quality of the story itself, which I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of social media memes that compares the original Harry Potter setup and compares it directly to Star Wars, right?
Hmm.
The young hero that's saved by an old man with a big beard and then trained in the arts of mystical ways, and then who goes on to train with a much older person who's mystical, you know? And it's really, really funny, right? But it's kind of hard to deny that there's a lot of parallels in there. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, I don't mean to make you mad. Like my wife and in general, our household, we enjoy the Harry Potter movies, and she's read all the books. But that being said, I don't think Harry Potter stands up to like the Narnia Chronicles. You know what I mean? I don't think they're in the same class. I don't think Harry Potter is going to be remembered in the same way. So if you're going to go after these books, at least go after the books that actually will have this life for generations and generations.
I mean, this is certainly not the worst books on the shelves of a bookstore, in terms of, quality or message. Go to the erotica section of any bookstore. I mean, there's plenty of just absolute garbage there.
Sure.
How many Danielle Steele books are there in the world?
Right.
Yeah, sure. Like things like Twilight and Hunger Games are written at like an eighth grade, seventh grade kind of a level.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you don't find value in these books, I get it, but they're books.
Yeah.
They're not even teaching, for the most part, these things aren't even teaching ideas. The ideas are already there, and the people that are consuming them already think this way, and you're doing nothing to change their hearts or minds. There is homelessness in the world, there's hunger in the world.
Yes.
There is real oppression of real people in the world, and Greg Locke and his company are, I mean, company of people, that is,
Right. Yeah.
They're burning books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's apparently ranting about witches in his congregation, which I'm
Right.
sure if there were any actual witches in his congregation, they left a long time ago.
So, like to me, Greg Locke isn't so much a pastor, even though that's the pulpit is where he does his work. He's really performing for a larger audience, right? He's performing for the camera, which is going to go out to millions and millions of computer screens. But he might be the first truly successful version of a Christian shock jock, a man cow, a
Hmm.
Howard Stern, that kind of personality, right? And so I guess ultimately, as my question is every week that we do this show, where are the Christ followers? Where is the church to say, this is not who we are? This is not normal. Instead of worrying about the cancel culture of Joe Rogan, who's not really Christian, or Kanye, like instead of these people who are very peripheral to the Christian experience, why don't we kind of say with a unified voice, this man claims to be Christian, but we have no idea who he is. And we're pretty certain that if there is a day of reckoning, Christ is also going to say, I never knew you,
There's this term, apophatic.
Mhm.
Okay. I know I love the word. That's why I had to use it. When you describe something by what it isn't. And I think that Greg Locke, and as there are others as well. I mean, I want to single him out for this, but it can be very pleasing to the senses when you can define yourself by what you're against.
Right. Yeah.
But ultimately, that's not what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. As Christians, we are really supposed to be approaching it and defining ourselves by what we are for.
Right.
And more to the point, who we are for in
Yeah.
Jesus. When I try to think, like, what's the solution for this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like, I just straight don't have an idea of what to say other than we need to stop looking at people like Greg Locke and saying, oh, he's just a kook. we don't need to pay attention to him. Answer a fool according to his folly, and you'll get sucked into the silliness, right?
Right.
But then right after that, right, it's if you don't answer a fool according to his folly, he will be wise in his own eyes. I think this is a time when the situation is we need to answer this dude according to his folly so he does not appear wise in his own eyes.
Right.
And so it's not anything I can tell Greg Locke other than just, dude, stop.
Right.
But I think it is a responsibility of the believers in his community who aren't in his congregation.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, dude, you're leading your people down a path of hate. Perfect love casts out fear, according to the Apostle Paul. It was good enough for him. It's good enough for me.